Todd Shyman. Hello, welcome back. Now we have the last speaker of this creators track, and I'm thrilled to announce the next speaker because I've been reading the presentation and the bio, and our next speaker is Todd Shyman from Google. He's head of the Immersive Arts team, and I'm very sensible to this topic. And prior to this, Todd had roles in Pixar, and he's also an independent films producer. And he will introduce and he will present the Google's Immersive Arts team and what they do at Google. So please welcome Todd Shyman.
Thanks so much for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Todd Shayman. I started and lead the Immersive Arts team at Google, and it's really an honor to be here, getting to share this very unique experience with you all. We have a short window of time here, so my goal today is really just to introduce you to our team, some of the things that we've been up to, and some of the things we've been learning along the way. I hope it's thought-provoking and interesting, and I'll also leave a little time at the end for any questions as well. So what is the Immersive Arts team? We are an internal creative team whose purpose is to really enhance Google products with warmth and play and utility through thinking around immersive design. We have a couple dozen people full-time internally, and we also partner a lot with a variety of outside studios to accomplish our projects and work. And we come from a lot of backgrounds. We come from the worlds of gaming, film, visual effects, various agencies and studios. Some of us have experience at other large companies, others at startups, and everything in between. And really this confluence of experiences has been one of the most magical aspects of my experience with the team. We've all addressed similar challenges from different angles as the ones we're dealing with now, from different industries. And we bring all of that together to try to solve these new challenges we face in the immersive space. I myself came from Pixar, where I spent a little over 11 years prior to joining Google and starting the Immersive Arts team about 5 years ago. And one of the most important things I learned at Pixar was the very intentional breathing life and emotion into story and technology. And the way to accomplish that, I've learned, is to really bring incredibly talented people who do really different things together to work side by side with each other daily. And that back and forth between artists and engineers and product people is really the beginning and the formation of what we tried to do in our aspiration around immersive arts. And what we bring on that front is really wide ranging. We have concept artists and illustrators, tech artists and prototypers, character designers, animators, sound designers. And collectively, we bring an expertise that we think of as visual and motion design and art direction, and also creative technology, by which we mean we really take early, still fragile, evolving technologies that Google and others are developing and try to identify high value use cases for them. Because we're an internal group at Google, we're pretty anomalous at Google, especially our emphasis on perceptive technology, 3D tech and design, and immersive tech. And because of that, I think that brings interesting opportunities and challenges that we've really learned to understand and navigate over time as a team. And another thing that makes us unique is that we're a horizontal team, which means we get to partner with lots of teams across Google. Teams like Search, Google Lens, Maps, YouTube, the hardware team, all of whom are identifying new ways of designing and extending their experiences through immersive design. And this gives us a special opportunity and advantage to really apply our skills in a way that's both focused on immediate specific projects that we can help deliver on, and also can be amplified across Google and beyond Google. So we start small on particular projects, and then we really think bigger in terms of like how we're going to extend those in the longer term in a more durable way. As I said, we started about 4.5 years ago. Early on, a lot of our projects were focused around Google Cardboard, early VR experiences. We honed our skills around the launch of the Daydream VR platform. And then, especially over the last few years, we've really been moving into AR experiences, and also the confluence of that with longer term vision of AR and VR. And we made a lot of discoveries and also some mistakes along the way. And one of the challenges, especially partnering with teams across Google, is that it can be quite overwhelming. There's a lot going on. It's really hard to know, given that we're a relatively small team, how we best prioritize our work and focus on the things that we can have the most singular impact on, and that we think are going to kind of open up the floodgates most profoundly for others down the road. And so the way we've learned to frame this is these 3 guiding lights that we call pilots, patterns, and platforms. And I want to just give a little bit of insight into how we think about each of these, and some examples, particularly of pilots. So we start with pilots, and pilots are really product-focused collaborations. They're deep partnerships that we have with different product and UX teams at Google. And we really think of these pilots like in a way like TV show pilots. Sometimes they get picked up, sometimes they don't. Regardless, we learn a lot along the way, and we really get a good read on how our platforms and pipelines are working, and how what we're designing are received by real users. And because of that, we can solve before we decide to scale. So these are real world collaborations. We really think whenever possible, it's important to build things with the intention of launching them in some capacity. And that can mean a lot of things in different contexts, but putting real pressure on ourselves and on our technologies to design something that's for real people in the wild, I think is really important in our process. It puts real pressure on us and to solve for user needs. And then we can validate ideas and define new opportunities for users to engage with down the road. As one example, last year at last year's Google I/O, we helped drive Explore I/O, which was allowed attendees at that conference to use AR and real-time information to navigate the conference and get to where they're going in a timely fashion. And that helped, as an example there, both at the conference itself and for us to really understand how that type of mechanism might be useful in lots of different ways in the world. We also, around the same time, had a great collaboration and continue to have a great collaboration with a product team called Steam Viewer, which is Google's immersive viewer, and that we've been integral in building and integrating 3D assets to showcase how you develop those and drop them into your world like this shark. We also have a great partnership with Google Lens, and we've added a lot of visual and motion design work that's really helping to shape and define that direction of that product. And we have a great collaboration there, both on more immediate launch focused work and features around the product, and really starting to think visually about exploring future intended areas to push the product, and really to help inspire the product teams to think of new ways and directions in the future. And so here are some examples of that we've helped articulate visually. We really recognize that we need to collectively rally around visuals for all of us to understand where we're headed and move beyond kind of the descriptive in these things. We've worked a lot on a variety of efforts that support camera-based experiences. And one example of that some of you may be familiar with is our work on Google Playground, which allows Pixel users to add context-aware characters and elements into their environments and to interact with them, to express themselves creatively, and to share that with their friends. Our team both designed and developed a lot of our own original sets of characters for Playground, and we have been able and fortunate to be able to partner with several outside creators to bring their works into Playground, like this example and collaboration with Donald Glover and Childish Gambino, where we were able to design Childish Gambino and bring him into Playground. And one of the most gratifying things that we've seen is the type of user-generated content that that emerges organically once we launch something like this. And so you can see some examples here of the Childish Gambino experience. And we're always surprised by the types of things, how people take these things and move them and into directions that we hadn't expected. And that helps feed our future pilots that we explore. We've also worked a lot with the Google Maps team. As an example, we prototyped Navimals, which is really the idea behind it is to create intelligent characters that help serve as guides and guide you in your navigating of your world. And you can see our fox that we designed here. And Navimals, when we shared it, was very embraced very positively by the public. Ultimately, our broader team decided not to scale it. Right now, one of the things we learned was that the fox, people identified so quickly with the fox that they expected it to be really more intelligent than it was or is at this point, and lead them to interesting things. And it was so enchanting that in some cases it was almost distracting from the kind of fundamental utility of getting people from point A to point B. And so as a consequence, we've hit pause on this. The fact is, though, that we've really learned an enormous amount regardless, and this is fed into a lot of our other projects. As an example, both Playground and Navimals work really directly influence how we've approached the partnership that we have with YouTube, looking at AR pilots, and we've worked both with YouTube and many well-known studios to create immersive experiences where you as a user can place yourself into the world, say, of Stranger Things, or you can become Maleficent. This has been, I guess, again, feeding into other experiences that we're doing. And because we're an embedded internal team, we can help really solve problems and connect the dots across multiple internal teams at Google in a way that I think is pretty unique and compelling. Another example is AR in search. Several months ago, we released several 3D animals that are results of your search queries. And this has become increasingly popular right now as many kids and families are at home, and the use of these has been really, really significant and considerable, and we're really heartened by it too. And we see incredible opportunities, not only with animals, but the notion of surfacing AR elements as search results and extending the notion of search to really provide cogent information and insight in ways that more traditional search results are less able to organically. Another quick example is really working with our devices and services partners to rethink how you instruct people for things like the recently launched Google Pixel Buds. And so to create 3D instructionals that provide real-time interactive onboarding for people to understand these. And we think there's incredible value down the road, both in terms of like getting people to understand these things and to save lots and lots of paper as well. And finally, we collaborate with Google's Artisan Residence Program. This brings lots of artists from around the world to create really gorgeous exhibits. And we collaborate with them both on their art and also integrating some of our emerging technologies in how they create and exhibit their art pieces. So that's pilots. We then take those pilots, and that's a smattering of what we do. And as we work on those, we really systematically codify those efforts and accumulate our knowledge of what we've learned over time. And we build a foundation of patterns that includes like documentation of how these things work, defining UX patterns and technical patterns that we think can apply in the future, and showing how you can like collaborate across different teams for a single source of truth. And because we're a horizontal design team, we can really document our collective knowledge and bring people together across Google. And finally, as we're building these pilots and platforms, we collaborate closely with our engineering peers to help the platform scale. And we really connect the dots between the pipeline and authoring tools and provide real-time feedback that makes these tools artist and user-friendly for lots of developers down the road. And there's a constant feedback loop between these things. It's not one directional. So that's just a smattering of the types of things we do. A few just like quick observations of what we've learned over time. Some of these I'll echo from what I've said before, but one is really the importance of solving before scaling and the freedom to fail and the recognition that failing actually provides real helpful information about how to move forward. The importance of really being embedded and sitting side by side with the product and engineering teams, especially early on. The importance of hands-on work and launching things and not just speculating and really moving things to real users. Really carving out time and resources for thinking about how to go from a pilot to designing patterns and systems that are durable for the long run. Which is really a challenge. That's the transition from pilot to something that's scaled and amplified is really hard in both directions, because we need to know when to amplify it and when we should back off and when it's not ready to do that. And we're coming up with like ways to really try to balance those things. The other thing to say is just sort of less functional, more spiritual, maybe, but some of the things that I think that we've learned as a team and help, I think, to amplify at Google is just really that immersive design requires being flexible, having a pioneering spirit, the right balance of confidence and humility, really bringing people together to learn from them and from each other who have very different backgrounds and skills and perspectives, and to really keep in mind the moral compass of what we're doing, particularly in this moment, but really all the time. I go back to why I do these things, and I think the best moments I've had at Pixar and the best moments I've had with the immersive arts team is really when we succeed, we connect people in really meaningful ways, and we give really them new and organic ways to express themselves and to really understand and be part of the world in a better way. And so I'm incredibly thankful for the time to share some of this with you. We would love to. I'd love to talk more, and I believe we have a little time right now for some questions. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Todd. And it was an amazing. Thank you for pointing out the importance of multidisciplinarity in this field, transdisciplinarity, and to give us the idea of what success is when you run these experiments, and it's all about connecting with people in creating meaning in what you do. So we have some questions, and if before starting our Q&A, you would like to add something after listening again to your presentation, or to comment.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Giovanni, and thanks everyone for listening and for the questions. I think that the one thing that I just want to emphasize that I think we're in the phase right now of trying to figure out is really how do you, when something is an experiment, is a test and it seems to be successful, how do you take that into something that scales appropriately and can really have do impact across lots and lots of people, and in going from small to large. And I think really kind of figuring out the pacing of that and understanding when to let go and to like allow something to get bigger is really important and tricky, and something that we're grappling with a lot.
Yes, the Fox example was really interesting because it's all about dealing with the great expectations that the mainstream audience may have toward this medium that is already in our imagination because of science fiction, because of and also because it's a more natural way to interact with digital content. So you have to keep in mind that humans are somehow trained and they have expectations, and you have to deal with them, and that's fascinating.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely.
We have a question, and recent Google releases like TensorFlow are very exciting for XR. Yes, and what Google tech are you personally most excited to experiment with right now? Is James is asking.
Thanks, James. I agree. So much potential with all of TensorFlow. I don't, here's what I'd say. To me, the most important discoveries are straddling different worlds, and I think the same thing with technologies. And so I don't know if I would name one in particular as much as the confluence of them. And in particular, at a high level, what I'm really interested in is this recognition of our ability to understand contextually aware spaces and create and map that to beautiful performance and art and interaction of your characters or environments. And so sort of the confluence of those technologies, I think, are actually what gets me most excited, because to what you said earlier, Giovanni, too, is that it helps us really approximate the organic way in which we interact with each other and the world. And I think provides a tool chest that we really haven't had collectively until recently, and I think the sky's the limit.
So Leili is asking, do you know of other opportunities at Google, such as the AIR program, that immersive artists can get involved in? How can artists help you?
Absolutely. It's a great question. We love working with artists. I think that there are a couple things I'd say. One is our team works with individual artists and studios, and so there's some opportunity there. I also want to recognize that we're a small team, and because of that, we have to be very thoughtful in terms of the partnerships that we do. We've also, I think, recognized over time that there's a lot of value in going deeper on fewer things and spreading ourselves too thin. So one invitation is just that, is to, like, if there's something, given what I've spoken about today, that really like overlaps and sparks your interest, please feel free to reach out and connect with me on that. We are actually, the Artisan Residency Program, I think we're thinking deeply about how to expand that. And so that's, like, I think as individual artists, like a great opportunity for to work with Google. And we're thinking really beyond the kind of first phase of it, in terms of like really bringing more interactions between the technologies that we're developing and artists' experiences, and really partnering with artists in that way. So those are two things. There's, Google's a really big place. There's obviously other opportunities as well. The Google Doodle team, as an example, works with a wide range of artists. And that's also another team that I think is an opportunity to tap into, like, the scale and opportunity of like creating something really beautiful in partnership with Google.
it's really cool that you could share some insights, because I had other conversations with people from Google, and they were saying, I'm doing super cool stuff, but I cannot talk about it. And the life cycle of projects there, it must be really, really fast and challenging. So thank you for sharing, Todd.
Absolutely, I'm more than happy to.
Let me just check if we have time for a last question. Yes, when will we see Google cars driving around making 3D scans of the world, street view to 3D view? And
that's a yeah, I don't know how specifically I can answer that, but I am excited for those developments as well. And there's a lot of really fascinating work afoot, and look forward to some of the projects that we're working on, and some of our partner teams are working on, and like sharing them in the near term. So I appreciate the question and the sentiment behind it as well.
And we have time for another last question from Stepan. What is your opinion on mobile VR? That, by the way, Google started with a cardboard, and could it rise up again, or are standalone headsets the future?
You know, I think in the long term, standalone makes a lot more sense to me. I think that mobile VR, especially as a way to really like piggyback on like existing install base, and like really understanding, kind of like moving the needle in the early days, I think makes a lot of sense. Longer term, some of the things that I'm sure that a lot of you run into as well, it's like when you have your phone being used as a VR device as well, there's a lot of competing priorities. There's both technological constraints around it, but also just like the very fundamental kind of like using a piece of technology that you kind of put on hold for what you typically use it for something else, and kind of like going back and forth in between those things, I think is in the long term, limiting. That said, I think that there's like continues to be like really interesting opportunities for how we all have phones and we all have mobile devices in our pockets, and how we can leverage that and extend that into other wearables, and like the relationship between those in the short term, I think is really interesting as a way to bootstrap into the future.
Yes, cardboard is a really good fire starter, but it burned really fast. Maybe
That's
because
true.
it was
That's
made
true.
of cardboard. So, thank you very much, Todd. And I invite all the people that are online to get in touch with Todd, and to use the networking systems that we have available, because AWE has always been a place where to meet your mixed reality heroes. So please keep doing it. We will meet in person next year, of course. So thank you very much, Todd, for being with us, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Bye.